Hi again, everyone. Good to see you back again. Good to be talking to you again today. By request, today I'm going to be speaking a little bit about grief again. It's something we've talked about here before, and it's something that clergy people are asked to speak to with frequency, as we all would imagine. And so that's something that's asked of me from time to time as well. So I'll do my best today. Um, I'll confess to having some reluctance to speak about it in any way that isn't just defined as personal to me, because grief is such a huge landscape, and it's also such an intimately personal landscape that what I'm hesitant to do is ever try to speak some sort of truth to anyone about the nature of grief and what that experience will be like and what that experience is, what that experience means. I don't think anyone has the authority to do any of those things. It's too personal, it's too intimate, and it's too big to make those kind of generalizations about. So I won't talk about it from that point of view. I'll talk about it from a bit more of a personal point of view, a personal point of view that is informed by my tradition. And when I am asked to speak to grief, and when I am asked to speak about grief at churches or at interfaith gatherings, memorials, funerals, that kind of stuff, usually I'm being asked because to the person requesting me, I represent the Buddhist point of view, which is fair and also not fair. It's impossible for me to represent a Buddhist point of view if there even was such a thing. But what I feel in that when I'm asked to speak about grief from a Buddhist point of view is people who are wanting another perspective on something, and probably what they're more deeply wanting is something that will crack open their grief or wake them up from the spell of their grief or offer them a key or a tool or a trick that their worldview doesn't seem to offer them. Um, it seems to me that acute grieving can feel a lot like drowning. It's a clumsy and kind of obvious metaphor, but it seems to work for me. And if the thing that I'm used to being my life preserver, my reliable floating object, doesn't seem to be keeping me up, I'll reach out to any other thing that might appear to be floating. And I think sometimes I'm asked to speak from a Buddhist perspective because whatever the nature of the grief that someone is experiencing is giving them doesn't feel adequate. And they're wanting other options. And I understand that. I understand that. So, um, I am often, I speak with some frequency, regularly actually at a grief group at a local Lutheran church, and they do love to have me come in several times a year. I forget if it's quarterly or 3 times a year or something. And they do like for me to present to them some version of a Buddhist perspective on grief. I appreciate the opportunity. Um, and so I'm going to offer today a version of what I offer to them. It's always a little different. Um, but I'm aware when I walk into that room to sit with those people, I'm aware of the same thing that I'm aware of this morning as I give you this talk, as I offer these remarks. grief as a sacred landscape. And when I'm asked to go in to that little chapel and speak to, it's usually a dozen or so folks at that group that are part of a large congregation, and whoever shows up for that grief series is grieving. So usually the group is different every time I do it. Sometimes there's familiar faces who will come back over and over, but mostly they're new faces, people whose lives have been changed in the past months since I was there last. And so they're new faces to me. And I'm being invited to come into a very tender landscape, a very sacred landscape. And I walk carefully because I've been in that room many, many times over many years, and they haven't, right? This is their first experience having that particular experience of loss, right? This is their first grief in that way. Everybody's first grief is their first grief, right? It's something all of us experience over and over and over our whole lives. Loss, right? We lose things all the time. It's the most common human experience there is. And yet we all know what I mean when I say this is the first time. Because losing this relationship, losing this person, um, grieving the loss of this particular shift, this particular transformative moment is fresh and raw and has never happened before and will never happen again, and we can feel it, right? So there's something very intimate and very undefended, something very precious about that landscape. And I'm aware when I walk into that room, I should walk carefully and slowly and with a lot of reverence for what I am being offered. I'm actually being offered a bunch of people's hearts. And so I try to speak in that space, as I am this morning, with a lot of tenderness. There's no expertise when it comes to grief. There's just the offering of an open human heart. So that's what you're going to get today. I'll do my best. I start with a short poem, and I would love to credit the poet, but I couldn't find the poet, and I looked. So I sadly am a forgetful person, and I've forgotten where I came by this poem and who to credit it to. I'm sorry, but it's very short, and it goes thusly. In my dreams, you lay your sorrow on the table, and I make you tea, and the air between us is soft, and we have time. In my dreams, you lay your sorrow on the table, and I make you tea, and the air between us is soft, and we have time. To me, that describes very simply and really eloquently the landscape of relationship with the experience that we call grief, sorrow, loss. It is not a problem to be solved. It's not really even a difficulty to be overcome. That doesn't feel quite right to me. It's a landscape to walk through, and when we are fortunate enough to walk through it in loving relationship, we are blessed indeed. I am aware as a meditation practitioner, I'm aware as a Zen practitioner that self-witnessing is central to my tradition, and therefore I can also see this poem as not only an expression of the kind of presence I would want to offer someone who was grieving, or the kind of presence I would want to be offered if I was grieving, but also the kind of presence I can offer to my own experience of grieving. It can be an entirely internal experience. The poem we just read, that can describe an entirely internal movement too. Right? In the Buddhist tradition and in all contemplative traditions, we practice and we're encouraged to remember that what we are experiencing is transitory. Right? Everybody knows this. It's a universal truth. The thing that I am witnessing, the thing I am experiencing, feeling, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting is coming and going. It's the scenery. Even if it's very, very vivid, even if it's very, very intense, even if it's arresting, it's still transitory. And all of us know this as humans because none of us have ever had an experience that arose and didn't leave, or that came and didn't go, ever. No one's ever had a feeling that came and didn't change and didn't leave. No one's ever had a thought that came and didn't change and didn't leave. We might have similar thoughts. We might have similar feelings. They might come back with frequency. But we've never had an experience come and stay. So we know that what we're witnessing is transitory. What we're experiencing is transitory, right? And so I get to sit down with my grief. My grief is not me. That's not me. It's something I am experiencing. I'm the experiencer. I'm the experiencer. And so I can sit down across the table from my grief and I can make it tea. And the air between me and my grief can be soft. And I can give it time. Can you feel there's loving relationship there? Like, yeah, of course. I'll be with you. I'll make us tea. I'll sit with you. And this relationship between us can be soft and kind, and I can give you time. Right? Empathize with my own experience. That's a great possibility for all of us. A great possibility. So I like to read the memorial verse, the memorial part of the memorial verse that we chant, or that is chanted, I should say, during memorial services in a Soto Zen setting. There's other versions of this, of course, and every center, every lineage, every temple has their own way of doing it. But the one I'm familiar with is something I've chanted a lot over the years, many times when I've been called upon to perform a ceremony or a service of some kind. And so I'll read you the first bit, first two sentences of that chant, because it's beautiful. It gives us a little bit more to look at when we're talking about grief from a Buddhist point of view. Earnestly consider the coming and going of life and death is like the changing of hot and cold, summer and winter. Their coming and going is like a bolt of lightning striking through the empty sky. Their passing is like waves disappearing into the great ocean. It's the first part of the memorial verse, the memorial chant. The recognition, as we already said, of impermanence and the transitory nature of our experience, right? Summer and winter, hot and cold, lightning coming, waves disappearing. These are natural images from the natural world all of us are familiar with. They're universal images. And we're reminded, therefore, that grief is a universal experience. There is no escaping from it. And the reminder of grief's inevitability, loss's inevitability, and our suffering around its inevitability Through these images, we're also reminded that it's very natural. It is the nature of things. There's a correctness to the arising, there's a correctness to the departure, and there's a correctness to the grief that accompanies that for people. It reminds me, when I hear this verse, things are as they should be. And that's a hard sell. I'm aware that that's a hard sell because so much of our personal suffering around grief comes from the belief this shouldn't be happening. It's wrong. It's broken. It's a sign of a universe, a world that has come unglued or has become shattered in some way. There's a wrongness to the loss, we believe, and that idea, that resistance, that constriction, that heartfelt no is the source of our suffering, of course. Right? We're trying to fight with the nature of things as they are. It's a very, very, very difficult thing to accept. Loss and grief, in some circumstances, much more so than in others. Right? We don't blame ourselves for resisting. It's very human, very human. But we do get to see and go, oh, yes, of course. Not only is the loss understandable, natural, inevitable, but so is my resistance. This is what people do. It's what people do. They say no to this guy. And we can forgive ourselves, I hope, for saying no. When we do that, we say yes to our suffering. What I don't think is fair is to ask someone, because resistance and because constriction is the cause of suffering, don't do it. That doesn't seem fair to me. Yeah, it's true. Resistance causes suffering. The pain of loss is increased tenfold by fighting against it, wishing it were otherwise, wishing it was going away, saying no to it, wishing it wasn't true, fighting against reality. That causes suffering. Yeah, of course it does. That's Buddhism 101. That's spirituality 101. That's just noticing the way the world works 101. Right, that's correct. When I fight against what is, I suffer. That's correct. And so, yeah, it would logically make sense. I would think, well, then stop doing it. I get it. It doesn't feel fair because it's so human to say no. It's so human to resist. It's so human to cry out and fight it, of course. Who wouldn't? So instead of accosting myself or others for the resistance, saying yes to the resistance is opening the door to say yes to the suffering. Of course, the suffering is here. Of course it is. Let's move toward it. I understand why you're resisting. I understand why you're constricting. I understand. I'm talking about my own experience. I'm relating to my own experience. I'm also talking about how I might be with another or how I would want another to be with me. I would want them to affirm my pain, but I would also want them to affirm my all too human suffering around that pain. Of course he's going to fight this. Of course he's going to wail against it. Of course he's going to try to say no. Of course. Of course. There's a grace there. And that's part of what I get from the natural imagery of the beginning of the memorial verse of this is natural. This is what happens. We're not describing it as easy. We're not describing it as not painful, but we are describing it as natural. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. The wave comes up, the wave goes down. The lightning comes and the lightning leaves. Summer turns into winter and then winter turns into spring. Right. Relationships form and then they separate. People are born and then they die. And then other people are born. Right. This is the way of things. So it's helpful to be reminded of that. And when this memorial service, there's much more to it I'm not going to speak to today. But when this memorial service is happening, the participants, um, whoever's in the room, whoever's in the sanctuary, um, is encouraged to put their palms, we call it gasho in Japanese, right? But the prayer posture, everybody knows this. Put their palms together in the prayer posture while we listen to the chant leader recite the verse. They say it alone, so all we have to do is listen, right? They make this posture, the prayer posture, the gasho, when they're reciting the verse. And I encourage you to notice how tender your palms are when you place your hands together in this posture. It feels like a really appropriate thing to be aware of in the middle of a memorial service, a recognition of grief. And if absolutely nothing else, I can become aware of just that one thing as I'm sitting in this space. Perhaps I'm surrounded by family, perhaps there's friends, perhaps I'm alone. But there's this verse being recited, and I'm in the middle of experiencing grief, or I'm there to be with somebody else who's in the middle of experiencing grief. And so the instruction I offer is very simple. Pay attention to the tenderness of your palms when you place your hands together. Feel how tender they are. This might just a little bit remind you to keep your heart open. Make yourself available to your own experience. To try to stay open to the experience. Right? That's how we become available to ourselves. It's obviously how we become available to others. It's how others become available to us. There's a shared landscape here that we're entering, and reminding myself of the tenderness of that landscape is really important. It'll help me act and speak skillfully when I realize how tender it is. It's the experience I have when I walk into the chapel with a dozen grieving people. This is a tender place, right? So we try to keep ourselves close company. That's extremely important. The landscape of grief can feel very, very, very big, and it can feel very, very, very barren. It can feel like walking across a very large desert all alone. And so keeping ourselves very close company, staying very close to our own experience with a lot of tenderness is really important. This is part of how we do that. I'm right here. Can you feel how my right hand can keep my left hand very close company? It can sit across the table from it and serve it tea. And can you feel how in that same moment my left hand can keep my right hand very close company? Sit across the table from it, serve it tea. Right? Our awareness can become very steady, very stable, and more present to ourselves in this way. You can see, I'm guessing, why in the Zen tradition, the regular practice of self-witnessing, formal self-witnessing, meditation, zazen is so important. Like we practice this. Practice paying attention from a really kind place. Practice paying attention from a really spacious place. Practice paying attention from a really curious place. Do it every day. Every day, sit down and practice paying attention to the experience of the human being. Do it every day. We get really good at doing it. We get very steady at doing it. We get very stable at doing it. So that during times of grief, when the whole world feels like it's shifting and the landscapes are splitting and the heavens are rent, oh, right, there's a thing I know to do here. There's a thing I know to do. There's a skill I have, and it's very simple. Right? We're using the palms as a metaphor. Oh, right. There's a way I can keep myself close company. That's all we're talking about, right? You can see that part of why I'm asked to go speak to a Lutheran grief group is because they're imagining that the Buddhist perspective on grief is something that might crack something open for them. I started kind of by saying that. My sense always has been, well, what they're expecting is for me to say, oh, in the Buddhist world, this is what we think heaven is, or hell, or death, or rebirth, or reincarnation, or whatever. They're expecting a belief system. They're expecting me to describe some sort of cosmology that they can hold up in contrast to their own, a story, an idea, right? A narrative, a belief system about death. I don't give that to them. I don't. Number one, that wouldn't be fair. Buddhism doesn't have isn't a monolith, and it doesn't have a universally agreed upon idea. That's not really the point. And it's certainly not the point of the Zen I was taught. My beliefs about grief are not going to be of service to me when I lose the person I love the most. But this, my years of practice, my ability to stay really close and attend with great love to the experience of a person who's grieving, that is of service. When I'm in heartbreak, the last thing I need is a story about the heartbreak or someone telling me what I should believe about the heartbreak, something that distances me from it, right? A silo in which to put it. No. All I offer that group, all I've been offered, and all I've ever found to be of help is I'll sit with you while you're in it. Just basic empathy, simple compassion, right? So the tenderness of the palms, we're encouraged to notice. I'm encouraging you to notice. I encourage you to notice the familiar tug of gravity, the faithful tug of gravity on your bones. It's a hard thing to become aware of because we feel it all the time. We never don't feel it really. So it's a tough thing to become aware of, but it's also faithful and it's steady and it's reliable and it's right there, right? Just like the firmness of the earth that you walk on or that you are sitting on. You can feel it right now as you're listening to this. Of course you can. Because you're standing or you're sitting or you're lying down or you're walking or you're running or even you're driving. You can feel it. Soles of your feet, your seat, whatever you're leaning up against, you can feel how faithful the firmness of that earth is that you're walking on. We feel this every moment of every day, but we don't always experience it as offering us comfort and offering us something upon which to experience our lives. There's a baseline safety. The earth is the earth is solid and firm and it holds me up. Most of my experiences of change and chaos and shift and unpredictable movement. And with that comes anxiety and the desire to control. Yeah. That's the human experience. And how quickly we forget. And underneath it the entire time is right there, a very stable, firm, secure earth. Oh, when I'm feeling unsafe and when the chaos feels overwhelming, I can remind myself this is not an idea of being supported. It's a felt experience in my bones of being supported. This is not abstract. This is happening right now. Further, I encourage you to notice the coolness of the air as it's entering your body, your nostrils, your mouth. I encourage you to notice the warmth of your breath as it leaves your body through your nostrils, through your mouth. Notice how soft that movement is. Feel it. I encourage you to befriend the emotions, to befriend at least the experience of having emotions that rise up in you and change in you and then fold back into the unknown. That's a tall order, I know. We tend to regard experiences that contain pain as enemies. It makes me sad actually to say that sentence. Because pain is so important. It's what keeps us safe. It gives us such important information about what it is to be a human. But it's true, all of us tend to immediately regard an experience that contains pain as an enemy. Something I want to turn away, close the door on, skip over, fast forward, feel less, not know, not experience. That's part of our hardwiring as humans, I understand. We all do this. And grief is no different. There's a huge amount of pain in grief, and it's a difficult pain to understand. It's physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's psychological. Of course, we want to skip over it. Of course, we don't want it to be there. We want to fast forward. We want to feel it less. Of course. Of course. Again, yeah, of course. We can affirm that. And we can also challenge ourselves, push just a little with a lot of tenderness to sit opposite that experience. Sit down opposite that experience at the table, offer it some tea, give it a little time. Because it will rise up and it will change and it will fold back into the unknown. That's what experiences do. Do you see the sequence? How the tenderness of the body reminds me of the firmness and the safety of the body, how the experience of the breath coming and going mimics the experience of the emotions coming and going. They rise, they change, they leave. They rise, they change, they leave. Emotions are the very same way. Watch them. If you don't believe me, do this. Close your eyes for 30 seconds and see if you can find a feeling that doesn't change, or even a bodily sensation that doesn't change, or a sound that doesn't change, a taste, a breath, anything. Can you find anything? No. We really become aware it's always, always, always changing. And so it becomes safe for us to sit across the table from our feeling. It's changing all the time. It's okay. We can do that. Even if it's for only a minute, we can do that. Right? This soft animal that we inhabit, the soft animal of our body that we inhabit, is a constant play, right, of sounds and smells and tastes and light and shadow, coming and going, feelings, thoughts, memories, hopes, fears. It's come, going, coming, going, coming, going, right? So for even a few seconds to just rest in the awareness that sees that and knows grief is just one of those things. It doesn't diminish its pain. It doesn't diminish its significance, but it helps us to hold it in a larger sense of, oh, this is part of the great unfolding, just like the wave disappearing into the ocean, just like the lightning bolt, just like summer shifting into fall and shifting into winter. We know that's part of the great unfolding. Does that make sense? It helps us put it in a larger, kinder, more universal, certainly, and more understandable setting. Yes, this is part of the great turning. This is part of the great thing, of course. So what I'm describing in short is in the Zen tradition, we are encouraged to become tender and more available to our experience all the time, actually, every day into every experience. But in the setting of grief, much more so. We don't try to explain it away with stories. We don't try to numb ourselves to it. All of the rituals, the chants that we do, the um, the ceremonial elements that we do in a memorial um, are designed to help us become more connected to the experience we're having, right? More available to it, more present to it. It's designed to give us a container of safety. This container is sacred. This container is blessed in some way. And so in it, you can have the experience. It's available to you there. It's okay. That's actually what ritual containers are designed to do, right? Ceremonies are designed to give us a container of spiritual and social and psychological and physical safety so that we can become more available to the movements inside of us, right? Of joy or of grief, right? Weddings are no different. Same thing, right? So our as practitioners, as participants, our invitation is to just love it the best we can, to touch it, our experience with tremendous care, to care for our grief, right? Because all of us can feel the truth that the only thing that helps for grief to transform is the tenderness of the touch, the light of loving awareness, to see it, to ventilate it with light, with touch, with movement. That's us. We are that light. We're the ones who see it. We're the tender touch. We're the safe container. We know that when we hold something with great love and great care and tender attention, it transforms. Just like everything in the universe transforms, right? And we all know that nothing is healed. Nothing in this healed. Nothing in this universe is healed with separation, right? Or distancing or exclusion. If I try to push my experience away, I know that that doesn't help. It's never helped anything ever. It certainly never healed anything. Separate from that thing, distance yourself from that thing. Don't feel it, numb yourself, exclude it, leave it out, cut it out, excommunicate it. We know that doesn't change anything. It certainly doesn't heal it. Only the opposite works, including. Including. This is the nature of love. It's the nature of enlightenment. It disavows nothing. It includes it all. So to wrap up here, grief, it's kind of like a fever, maybe. Maybe that metaphor works a little bit like a fever that we live inside of, or that lives inside of us. Probably a bit of both. And we live with it until it passes, changes. Um, and our own self-mercy, our own self-compassion is the cool cloth, right, that grandma puts on our forehead while she sits with us. It's only by turning toward the experience of a grieving heart, by including it, doing our best to sit with it, that we heal it. I'll read the poem again. We'll end that way. In my dreams, you lay your sorrow on the table, and I make you tea, and the air between us is soft, and we have time. It's felt really good to offer these thoughts to you today. I hope they're of some help, maybe. But I certainly appreciate your attention. And for those of you who are inside the experience right now of grieving, and the experience of grieving is inside of you, I'll remind you of what you already know. The air between you and that experience can be soft, and you do have time. And of course, the experience you're having now will not last. It will change into something else. And your ability, which I trust you have, to be lovingly present to that experience is everything. It is absolutely everything. What a gift to the world. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention today. We'll see you back here again very soon. Bye, everybody.